It's Shuttle Sunday time, returning to Shuttle on a Sunday, like we try to do on occasional Sundays where there's not a lot going on, so we can go through all the missions in order as we have been. You will see there's a playlist for this Shuttle Sunday show, which is shown live on SCL, Space Coast Live, but also recorded into our YouTube for everybody. It's published, so everyone can get to see it and you can get to review it. So if you are watching it back, you may get a little bit confused about us taking questions and answering them, because we do it on a live show as well. So if you do have any questions, do at NASA Spaceflight, followed by your question, and then we'll try and answer them during the show. We do have a lot to show you on this one. About 75% of this show will be the preparation before launch, because this is return to flight. This is where they're coming back after a very long stand down after the Challenger disaster. So a lot of it, as you can imagine, is those preparations to make sure this safely went and launched properly with Discovery, the flagship, because Discovery launched both return to flight missions, including after Columbia. So there's a lot of history with Discovery. And to talk us through this, we're joined by Sawyer. Hello, Sawyer.
Hello, Chris. It is very great to be back for Shuttle Sunday. I'm wearing a Shuttle shirt. We've got Shuttle on the screen, and this is the return to flight mission, which a bit somber, a bit interesting, and a kickoff to an amazing stretch of Shuttle missions that we get to talk about.
Indeed, and I'm wearing my Padrat t-shirt, which was sent to me by an actual Padrat during the shuttle program. I have kept it very, very safe that it's not disintegrated, because I do wear it quite a lot, but it's kind of on top of it. We're both wearing shuttle merch, which is great. We
Chris
need to
Flex.
find some. We need to find some shuttle. Yeah, me a very rare flex by me, so I must admit. We need to find a way of doing some proper shuttle merch clothing in our store. That has just come to me. I don't know how much demand there will be for it, but if we did it right and made it special, I think it might do well. Let me talk to Adrian after the show.
Yeah,
Moving quickly back to the
yeah.
show
So
itself, though.
I'm wearing my I was there shirt for STS-135. But anyway,
Oh my word. Let's get into that. We have a lot of photographs. Now, there normally on these shuttle Sundays we play what's called the resource tape, which they did after every shuttle mission. For this mission, the shuttle resource tape is corrupted. You can go on YouTube and watch it on YouTube. It's corrupted on YouTube as well. It just, no one's got a copy of it. So we're going to try and go through a lot of photographs. We do have 3 videos to show you as well, though, but the photographs are always good quality. So it's not a bad trade-off. Let's start off with the crew. Let's talk about the crew, Sawyer, because I mean, this is a veteran crew, as you can understand, for a return to flight mission, but my eyes are already diverted towards one person in particular. If we're talking about Challenger, the Capcom for
uh-huh.
Challenger got to fly as pilot in this one. Do you want to talk about this, Sawyer?
Sure. Yes, the pilot on it is Dick Covey. He was the one who, on the famous, calls that you hear out, is the one who said "Challenger, go at throttle up," which I still got goosebumps the entire shuttle program every time I heard the line "go at throttle up." So he got to fly this immediate mission afterwards. And as you pointed out, this was the first time since Apollo 11 in July of 1969 that there was an entirely veteran astronaut crew aboard the flight. In
Absolutely,
addition,
yep.
yeah, you had Frederick Hawk as the commander, John Lounge as MS-1, uh, David Hilmers was MS-2, and George Nelson was MS-3.
There we go. And you can imagine these astronauts are made of different stuff. I mean, sorry, I'm talking to the one person who you've met more astronauts than any of us all combined. They are a different breed, though. The ones who I have actually spoken to, you can get it. It comes across so well. So when people naturally think, "Wow, they must have been really nervous, especially after disaster," it's kind of not in their blood, is it? It's not in their DNA. Their DNA is saying, "I want to fly." They have no short list of people who said they want to fly this mission.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, 3 of them had already been scheduled for the next mission that was supposed to fly if 51L was successful. So they were ready to go to fly, and then Challenger happened. So at least they got the chance to fly afterwards. But I think this mission in particular, they probably felt more safe and more secure than in any other one, given the 2 years of redesigns, refits, and retesting that they did before this flight.
Indeed, and we do have 2 videos related to pre-flight testing. One for the SRB, which of course was the main focus of attention after Challenger's lost, and the flight readiness firing, which they did for a return to flight to ensure the vehicle was in its best possible configuration ahead of the launch itself. We have a lot of photographs here for the preparations. They're technically out of order slightly, but I've taken as many photographs from L2. The L2 thread has got literally 210 photographs from this mission alone, and it really is a case of picking and choosing. But I've selected the photographs that I think of interest. There's some which you will not have seen before, I guarantee you, because they're scanned from actual photographs and then digitized and put into L2. So hopefully some of you are in for a treat, some of you Shuttle veteran followers. Let's first of all look at the star of the show, which is Discovery. Again, looking rather sorry for herself because she hasn't got a forward RCS in. And obviously, the bars on the payload bay, I can talk a little bit about those, sorry. The bars on the payload bay is because the actual motors for the payload bay doors would not have the power to open them on Earth. They only work in space. So they do need to actually use a device to prise them open on Earth. That's why, even all the way through to the end of the show program, you would see these yellow bars on top of the orbiters. I do believe she's lacking her engines and OMS ports there.
Looks so sad. But yeah, in case those were wondering why, Discovery, up until this point, had just been hanging out in the VAB, waiting around for its trip out to California, where it was going to fly out of Vandenberg Air Force Base at the time, Slick 4 East. But then after Challenger, the mission would have required specialized SRBs made out of different materials that made them more fragile, and more fragile SRBs was the last thing they wanted after 51L, so they decided to scrap the program out west. It was a 4 East or a 6? A Slick 6, I think, sorry. Um, and so it was just sitting there. It took 600 days from Discovery's last flight until it was finally back out on a launch pad again for 26.
I honestly want to find an excuse to do a Shuttle Sunday for the mission that never happened from Vandenberg because Sawyer rightly brings this up. Discovery was going to become a West Coast girl. She was going to be basically based at Vandenberg to do the Department of Defense, US Air Force. I'm sure there's other designations for the polar orbit launches from Vandenberg SL6, Slick 6. Hey, I know they said SLC, and you're not meant to do that. It's Slick 6. Right? But of course, now SpaceX have taken over the former ULA site. But we're yet to hear, unlike Slick 37B, yet to hear from SpaceX on what their plans are. Technically, the US Air Force is saying it's for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, but there's a potential of Starship from there as well because the site is big enough. So hopefully, one day we'll get the excuse, the angle to go back to Vandenberg and talk more about the history of that. But let's focus back on this mission here. Here we got lots of press conferences. The media interest in this one was obviously very high, understandably. I don't have any complaints with the mainstream media bringing the attention back because technically they brought it back for the Teacher in Space mission, which obviously went wrong. But when you've had a disaster, you're going to have heightened interest. So they did a lot of press conferences. And we have lots of photographs here from the crew, obviously, with the shuttle model, which became a stable for all astronaut photographs to have a shuttle model with them. And this time, not the Columbia model, which seemed to be brought out for every single mission regardless of the orbiter. They actually do have the one without the black chimes there, so that is not Columbia. T-38. Jack is busy doing assignments for us around the US, so he's not on this one, so we can't talk about planes with him. But the T-38's obviously iconic with the astronauts. The company car of an astronaut is a T-38.
The NASA astronaut special, exactly.
Indeed. Lots of photographs here from obviously the OPF. This is where they're working on the hatch, the crew hatch. This is related to some of the training and some of the modification they did for crew safety. And you'll see lots more photographs involved here. I do believe this part of the photographs collection here is related to the hatch being blown off. The reason why they would blow the hatch off is because of this pole they're going to install, crew safety. I'm going to try and get to the actual pole later. But we can talk about that a bit more, Sawyer. But I do have these photographs here, which I never knew we had in L2. This is where they... I don't know who took these photographs, right? I don't know. I've never seen before on any of the missions. But this is where they're tailoring the suits for the crew photograph. So this is amazing. I've got more. Look at this. Look at... I mean, what are you going to wear today? Let's zoom in here.
The suits and the jackets.
You've got an option of a blue suit, a blue jacket, or a blue jacket. Would you like to wear the blue jacket instead, though? We also have these blue jackets.
I'd rather wear the blue jacket.
Yeah, I've never seen this before, and you can see he's literally tailoring them for it. Ah, lovely. He looked very impressed with his.
He doesn't
Yeah,
look as impressed.
no, and they've decided they've gone for the blue jackets. A good choice.
I can't believe I've never seen these either. This is amazing,
Yeah.
Chris.
Well, we have this massive thread in L2. I'm not trying to pump L2 here. But L2 is our massive collection of like shuttle history, among other things. It covers Starship and everything, all the other missions. But our historical area is mainly shuttle. As you can imagine, we've got Apollo and Gemini and what have you. But shuttle we've got per mission. And I was just going through downloading the photographs for this show, and I thought I didn't see these before. When I looked through the thread, it's just amazing. So I thought I'm downloading these, putting them on. This is from the Launch Control Center, the firing room. I believe this is pre-launch. This is testing. It might be from the flight readiness firing, but the firing room at KSC, you'll see actually in the live view on the right-hand side, look at the VAB and look to the lower right. That's the Launch Control Center with the firing rooms inside.
Yeah, it's hard to see from that angle, but there's a bunch of slanted windows all the way at the end of the right on the real one, and those were the windows you saw on the left side of your screen in that previous picture.
Yep, absolutely. Look at the old technology here.
High tech.
Yep. Obviously, since especially for Artemis, they completely renovated their control systems, but it is technically the same. They're still the launch director is still facing with the back towards, or her back, because it's I forget her name now. Remind me, Sawyer, the launch director, the
Charlie Blackwell Thompson?
thank you, yes, for Artemis. And then they turn around and watch the launch after T0. And these firing room, you can't really see the launch because the control panels at eye level and across the top of their head. So it's an amazing place to be there. But I'd be so tempted to look up away from my monitor to watch actual launch out the windows. This is a rare photograph as well. This is an OPF photograph.
Ooh, the
Yeah.
check-in.
It is the check-in. I've seen a video. I will find it one day. It's in L2, but it's down in the vault, where they allowed this Japanese media crew to keep filming all the way through. I'll probably have to get it cleared because the security of it, it would still probably apply to this day with the likes of Starliner. But they're walking through to where they check in and through these doors into this check-in desk here, and then walk around in the OPF underneath the orbiter dispatching in shuttle days. But that is the check-in desk, and you can see the sign at the top, Sawyer, vehicle powered. And they would literally have that sign lit up or not lit up, depending on what the status of the orbiter was. But yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, the old hotel vacancy, no vacancy idea.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Lots of training photographs here now. Another face you may recognize from the Challenger disaster. I remember his facial expression being the most obvious, along with Kirby. They were both sat next to each other on the in the Houston Mission Control Center, and it was great that these people got to come back and complete the mission that was following. So I thought that was a lovely thing because I'm sure a lot of people were affected by it, and I'm sure some people didn't come back from it. He did. Look at the old Mission Control Center. Look at this. The old blue screens.
Oh, yeah.
Now, crew escape systems. This is related to in the event. I'm going to say this, and I've had some comments in some previous missions where I pour cold water on the success rate of a return to launch site abort. I love those comments. They're from people who definitely know their stuff, so don't take it this wrong way at all. But I've spoken to too many a shuttle engineer who have told me that return to launch site abort. And I'm going to get comments again, and I'm literally passing it on. I'm not making this a fact. I'm just passing this on as a case of what I've been told. The best case scenario for return to launch site abort was to get over the SRB recovery ships, Liberty Star and Freedom Star, and bail out, and then get recovered by those ships. Again, you can write in the comments, but Chris, I'm absolutely sure they could get back to the launch site. I'm not going to doubt you for a second. I pass on what I'm told by people who've worked in the program, so that's my counter to that. But again, I appreciate the comments. In fact, I welcome the comments. There's a lot of people in the comment sections of the recorded videos who absolutely know their stuff. So I'm going to go through this because they get to the poll eventually at one point here.
Which Freedom Star and Liberty Star, for those who don't know, those were the SRB recovery ships.
Yeah. They're still working. They're still being used to this day, I believe. They're still working for. I think they're working for the one's working for the Coast Guard. I think.
By the way, you
But
pissed the blue suit picture there. This is
I've
a
got more.
very
I've got more.
oh, good, because I wanna talk about those because you just pointed that out earlier and sent me down a rabbit hole.
Let's do it. Let's do it now because we'll have more pictures afterwards, and you'll have the knowledge of Sawyer with it. But yeah, I was asking Sawyer before we started the show. I said, "Well, hang on a minute. I'm so used to the orange pumpkin suits, the Aces suits, which they changed from the overalls we saw up to Challenger to this pressurized suit or partially pressurized suit that they used." And I thought, hang on a minute, why is it blue? Because they walked out in the orange suits. Sorry, we did some research into this, why the blue suits are there, and then they suddenly reverted to the orange suits.
Exactly. So it turns out this was the original plan. This would be the first mission since the early test days of Shuttle that they would be wearing a pressurized suit. I believe STS-4 was the last one, since that was the last test, quote unquote, mission. So what they did was they went for the pressurized system that you close and lock the visors, you got the air going through it. In the event of a cabin decompression, it's just another chance at survival. The original color was blue, but then it was quickly pointed out the fact that, hey, if you're going for a water emergency, a water splash out, like you pointed out, if they need to RTLS and just dump into the water there, blue is probably not the best color. So that is when they changed it to the traditional orange color that we're used to seeing. So, yes, you can say it's orange. And just so you know, this is a pressure suit, the official ACES suit. The advanced crew escape system one didn't begin until 1994. So these are like the precursors to the ones that we're used to.
There we go. You see, I'm so used to saying Aces, so I
Oh, me
reverted straight
too.
back. Yeah,
Me too. I had to look it up.
amazing. Speaking of it's orange, the external tank. We can give a little. I can give a little fun story about the external tanks. When they're sprayed with a surfy foam, they spray on foam. They're pretty much creamy white, and then they tan over time in the daylight, in the sunlight. And that was one of the reasons why STS-1, STS-2 went with white tanks, painted white tanks, because they were concerned about that impact of. It was one of the reasons they were concerned about white tanned in the sunlight. So that is where the external tank there is quite. I would say if that's Mashoud, that is really really orange because normally they come out of Mashoud and before they get to KSC and on the launch site, they come out quite creamy. So that one has definitely been out in the sunlight quite a long time. It makes me wonder if that's Marshall, that Saturn stage at the back there. That doesn't remind me of Mashoud. We'll have to do some more research into that one because it's interesting. But that's the external tank. Back to the blue suits. Oh, that's a nice photograph.
Oh, look at that. I love it.
Yeah. Again, sometimes you don't see this side of astronauts, but they're serious, steely-eyed missile men, but they're also quite fun a lot of the time, and especially a crew. A crew will be working, especially this one, together for a long, long time. They become family. And you saw a little bit with Inspiration 4 how Jared and his team of people, and Polaris as well, they could become a team. They become family. And you will get that story all the time. In fact, I could definitely at Jared right now and ask him the question, and he'd say the same thing. I'm not going to do that, but that's an example of how they all get along, and it's important for teamwork. Let's face it, they're a crew. They have to work together as a group.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, three of them had already been training together for a previous mission. So add in the now extra 2 years they had for this one. Talk about a very well trained crew for about a 5 day, 4 or 5 day mission.
Yeah, indeed. This is interesting. Again, I don't have the full facts behind it, but it's definitely not in space. It's on the ground training. It looks like they've got like a device where they can train working in the mid deck in what they expect to be microgravity in the mission itself. So it's almost like orientation training. It's hard to tell, but that's my guess.
Yeah, because that picture from just based off of where the hatches and everything are, this is a regular picture. It's not like this was tilted or angled. This is just someone standing there taking that photo. Because if you're in a launch position, that leaned back that you're seeing there, that's exactly how it would be launching from the mid deck. So I wonder if maybe this is part of that pre-launch training or training for evacuation in the event of something in the mid deck when you're in the launch position.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, Again, that's one of the there were several of these mock-ups they used. This one's obviously being used for crew escape training, but that's some scaffolding they've got up there, and that's a bit of a jump they've got. So that's fascinating in itself. I do know we have more. Here we go. We've got the slide chute here. Now this is fascinating because I'm trying to think what scenario this would be used. I'm thinking this would be in the case of a bad landing. I can't think of any other reason. It's not the shuttle could not do a water landing. They worked that out pretty early during testing that the shuttle would not survive a Sully style water landing. The shuttle orbiter just wasn't designed for it, and it would break apart. So I'm trying to work out what on earth this would be for. So yeah, I'm thinking bad landing.
Maybe bad landing, unless this was an earlier iteration test before they went with the actual escape pole that I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, we're coming to that. First of all, here's the payload. I'll talk about the pictures out of order. This is the actual payload they took on this STS-26. Two things, Sawyer. First of all, STS-26 or STS-26R. And the second thing being, what's this payload?
Sure. So in terms of the mission number, we talk about STS-26 for this, but if you look at most NASA documentation, this mission is listed as STS-26R. Now that's because, they started with STS-1 through STS-9 with a normal naming system, and yeah, we're used to seeing like STS-51F, STS-41D, things like that. They still had these STS designations underneath it. So even though they had the weird numbering system, there were other missions that were considered STS 26 all the way through STS 33. Now that they switched back to the normal numbering, they're like, wait a minute, we can't have two STS 26s. So they decided to call this STS 26R so that when they're going through all of their data and documentation, they don't get the two mixed up. Especially for the launch of this, which is a TDRS satellite. That is the Tracking Data Relay Satellite Network. This was TDRS C, was mounted to an inertial upper stage, and it would be launched up there. At this point, there was already a TDRS A up in orbit. So this would launch, and then you would have one at an eastern kind of longitude, and then one at a western kind of longitude. So that is what we went for. The other TDRS that was supposed to launch was the one in the payload bay of the Space Shuttle Challenger on 51L, if I remember.
Very good. I do notice the questions. Amazingly, we've been answering them live as you've been asking them yourself, such as the blue suits. When was the first appearance? Why blue suits? And also, why did the external tank redesign from white to orange? Basically, STS-1 and STS-2. They were but the actual end result of their findings of lack of concern of just flying with the unpainted external tank saved them about £400, which they could then translate into usable payload mass. So it worked out very well for them. Again, I do love the white tanks, but I'm also kind of like stuck with the iconic view of the orange tanks now, so that's fine. But those questions, we've been answering them. We do have one which we've not answered, which is related to my wish for shuttle merch from Phil, saying we need a shuttle bingo t-shirt. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I don't know how many would sell, but I'd buy one myself. So that's enough reason to do it.
At least
Also,
two, you and me.
oh, there we go. Then we got two sales. Adrian, two sales. Is it viable yet? Caesar G, can I just thank some people who've basically done some support? We don't look for support on this one. We're basically just doing a Shuttle Sunday for our own pleasure, and you're joining in with us. Caesar G upgraded to Red Team, and Astro Joe did a Red Team membership, gifted Red Team membership. Thank you, Astro Joe, one of our regulars. Let's move on with more pictures. We've got lots of them. Now, this is from the VAB transfer aisle. This is an SRB aft segment, which was been transported for stacking on the mobile launch platform. They lifted up just like the orbiter. You'll see that in a minute because we've got lots of photographs of that. Over from the transfer aisle into the high bay via the cranes. The cranes, which have been modified since, but they're still the same cranes they were using literally right now in stacking Artemis 2's SLS rocket, which is great.
Beat me to it. I was just about to say this is exactly what they're doing for the current SRBs, which, a reminder, they're basically in fact, they are shuttle SRB segments. It's just they're 5 segments for Artemis instead of the 4 for shuttle.
Yep. I believe this is from the Surge facility at KSC.
Looks like it.
There we go. Thank you. You know the buildings better than I do because I'm not been.
Unless it was ARF, could be the Surge.
Oh, nice. There is Discovery looking a bit better for herself there with engines installed. The booties, that I like to bring up for Raptors when we see at Starbase Live, when we see the booties on the 33 booties of the Raptors on the aft end of a Starship booster. They had booties for the orbiters as well with the 3RS-25s, and they had their we don't know what happened to the booties. I did ask some shuttle engineers who have since retired who got to keep the booties because they will not be small. They'll be larger booties than the Raptor ones.
Yep, and
There's
by
this.
the way, there was oops, sorry.
It's okay.
I was gonna say there were dozens of improvements on just the engines alone after this. I mean, they uh, included now finally an electronic engine controller, new valve actuators, new temperature sensors, changes with the turbo pumps. There were over a dozen different improvements to the space shuttle main engines that were flown on STS-26, and that's in addition to upgrades that they've already made to the brakes, the RCS engines, the tiles, the auxiliary power unit, the OMS pods, the over maneuvering system pods on the back, and as we've been talking about, adding that crew escape system. Those were all major modifications done to Discovery in the gap between 51L and 26.
Awesome. There's Discovery and Transfer Aisle. You can see the sling on the right hand side there. Let me try and zoom in on the sling. A little bit better than this. Maybe it's too far off the screen. Never mind. The sling is attached in the same points they use to lift the orbiter on the back of the shuttle carrier aircraft as well. So the sling points there. Obviously, you'll see the photograph. I'm going to bring up the other photographs. Here is a better one. There's a sling, the cradle which
Yep.
they used. It's a beautiful photograph, by the
You
way.
you may remember, by the way, when Jack did a live stream out at the California Science Center when they
Yeah.
were lifting Endeavor up for her new vertical exhibit, and that is the exact same one that you see on your screen right now from 1988. They used the same system, the same slings, all the way through the entirety of the shuttle program, and for all of the lifts and moves during their retirements.
I will never live that stream down. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Daz goes, "You want to come on and talk about shuttle for a bit?" I went, "Yes." And then we saw the sling, and I thought, that looks brand new. That can't be the same sling. They wouldn't, I can't imagine they're taking that sling all the way from Florida, all the way up to California. So of course, I go on the street like the newscaster from Die Hard, where he gets the wrong country for Stockholm syndrome. I came on very much like that. I'm going, no, that's definitely a pre-made sling they've used especially for this one. And of course, it wasn't. It was the original sling. There we go. I will never live that down. Oh, that is a great photograph. That is a beautiful photograph. And
Oh.
I'm going to zoom in on TPS. Zoom in. Look at this. The story was you could always tell which were the newer tiles because they were darker. That makes sense, doesn't it? But you actually got to a stage during especially in my case, during the later missions, the final missions, you'd be able to name an orbiter just from the actual sling photograph where they were completely vertical. You could name the orbiter without seeing the name because they're like fingerprints almost. You could tell just from the pattern of the black tiles that they put in, the newer tiles, which orbiter was which. It was a
Yep.
quiz back in the day.
You could also tell which were the newer tiles and which ones had you flown previously because of little markings on them. They had a kind of waterproofing agent attached to them so that they'd be fine while they're out on the pad. And then as they re entered, that stuff would basically burn away. So you had to re inject it each time it flew again. So if it had a little hole in the center, a little ring in the center, that meant it had previously been injected with that waterproofing material, which means it was a previously flown tile. If it didn't have that, then it was a new one.
Nice. This is a great photograph. And now you can definitely access this area. There's like a gantry right at the top of the VAB. Have you done it, Sawyer?
Uh, I have been to a similar point in the VAB, but not that exact one.
Right. Well, that's good enough, Sawyer. That's still a Sawyer flex. That's still a Sawyer flex because that's incredible. It gives you a size ratio of the VAB because this stack is not small. Just look at the external tank and the SRBs there. They look dinky in comparison to the actual building itself, but that is how big the VAB was. It was designed to host a Saturn V. Maybe one day it'll get to host a starship. We don't know what they're going with. They keep changing their plans and they keep saying no to using a high bay. There's a spare high bay they could use, but SpaceX were after it, and apparently they're not going for it now. But that might change again. But it
Yeah,
is a large building.
here's the craziest part. Take a look at the VAB on the right side of your screen here, which is live view, by the way. You've got the base part, which is a little bit wider, and then you have all of those doors. Just for perspective, only 3 of those doors would open for the space shuttle. So you've got the giant spot in the bottom, then you would have one, the bottommost part there, which is kind of connected, 2, 3. So the other 1, 2, 3, 4 of them on the top didn't need to be opened because shuttle wasn't as tall. Whereas for Artemis, for Sat 5, you would open all of them. So as big as it looks, it could be even bigger.
Wow. That's incredible. I did warn you this show would be 75% preparation for launch photographs because these are the big bulk of the photographs we got from this. So I'm going to quickly go through more. Here we go. You brought over, bringing it down for stacking. That's another great photograph. This photograph was pretty much the one that they always publish for every shuttle mission. I remember it from the return to flight missions after Columbia. It was always this shot, and it was a beautiful photograph where they bring it down for attachment to the external tank. That's the photograph Brady did a thumbnail of this show for. I gave him 3 options, and I was hoping he could make a thumbnail out of this one because this is beautiful. There is, in a future shuttle show, where we had Larry Sullivan, Stephen, Nathan Muller, all out there taking photographs, Max Q Entertainment, and for us. It was the first time we had people actually doing photographs for us as well. And there's many of these shots from the VAB where the orbiter rolls out to the big massive floodlights and the media assembled at the press site. It is a beautiful photograph, and it really is something I'm glad we've got an early emission one version for this, because I do think that is just absolutely gorgeous. Then arriving at the pad, 39B this time, wasn't it?
It was.
Which was the first time to use 39B was Challenger, and
Correct.
obviously that ended in disaster, but the return to flight mission also used 39B. Again, these are from 30 odd years ago. I mean, it's amazing that the quality is this good. Now, that I believe that would have been a shot from the flight readiness firing. That's why I kept it in the preparation photographs rather than a launch photograph folder. And we have a video of that as well. So I'm going to come
Which
to 2 videos.
Which, by the way, for the flight readiness firing, they tried to do one before that, and then they had to abort it 1 second before engine firing because of some weird readings that they were getting. So then they had to go out to the launch pad, change out some sensors in the engines, and then finally complete the flight readiness firing. So it took them 2 tries, but they did get there.
Yeah. And Astro during chat, we're not doing the crane thing until Jack's back on a Shuttle Sunday. So let's keep it between ourselves, yeah? We're not talking about the crane. Only when Jack comes back on. I'm probably spoiling it because there's a good chance Jack might listen to this or watch it back because he's busy. Jack's doing busy NSF stuff. But when he comes back on the stream, we'll talk about the crane. Let's keep it between ourselves.
What crane?
People,
I'm sorry,
regular
what? I
Shuttle
didn't
Sunday.
hear anything.
Yeah, regular Shuttle Sunday people will know the crane at the pad is a big thing that we bring Jack up on. Going, Jack, is there a crane on the pad still from the Apollo days? Right, here we go. Engine installation. This is a rare photograph as well. They did quite a lot in the later missions, but for these earlier missions, seeing this large forklift device, which was very specially made for the engines by Rocketdyne for installation into the back of the orbiter, it was a nice photograph to see in these early missions. It gives you a sense of scale again. Look at this guy riding it, riding the forklift. What a
Yeehaw.
job that is. That is a great job. Again, massively impressive that we have a lot of photographs, especially when they retired the fleet. They let us take so many photographs because the ITAR was out the window. Amazingly, before SLS came along, so maybe they're not. But it was really incredible to see these installation photographs. Sawyer Flex time. You've done this, the zero G flight.
Yes, I have, although mine was aboard a modified 727. NASA used a modified KC-135 plane as a way to just practice getting used to microgravity. And it looks like from this one, I can't tell exactly, but one of the new things that they would have to learn how to do in microgravity is suit up for landing. Because keep in mind, this would have been the first mission that they had the pressurized suits in orbit as a regular thing. Otherwise, it was just the blue flight suits. So they had to make sure that not only could they get this giant bulky suit on the ground, but that they could somehow maneuver it and get into the giant bulky suits in orbit to prepare for reentry.
Absolutely. I was just putting some questions in. I'm going to read in some questions out when we get to this preparation photograph because some good questions I want to answer. This is again the crew and more of the preparations for what they were going to implement as far as rescue strategies would go. Skip through these. Escape baskets. That's what I was rushing. I was rushing through those because I knew the escape baskets were coming
Uh,
up. We were talking about the escape baskets just the other day on the Crew 10 stream because it's a tried and tested way of getting not just the astronauts but also the pad crews away from the tower in the event of, let's say, a big hydrogen leak or something seriously bad where you need to evac the pad. But those crew escape baskets, they actually modified it now on 39B for Dragon, just half a platform higher to make it cater for the changes they did to the tower. It's still the original 39A tower for SpaceX that used. It's still the same shuttle tower, the Apollo tower, but it's basically the escape baskets are something they still use to this day, Sawyer.
Yep, a 39A and then 39B kind of has their own escape system variant out there now meant for Artemis and SLS. But yeah, they still test them occasionally. There are people I know that have been able to hop in the baskets and be sort of the guinea pigs and test shooting down at like almost 60 miles an hour.
The only good thing about the Constellation program and Ares, Silly Rocket Ares, was the proposal that they went for. It's not even just a proposal; it's a proposal that they down selected as the preference for the emergency escape system for 39B. It was literally a giant roller coaster. I'm not even joking. People have been thinking, Chris, you're joking. Just go into Google, do NASA spaceflight roller coaster, EES, and you will see the articles we wrote on it. It was the first article at USA Today quoted us as, and I'm sure they quoted us to try and get it's not true. This is a fun story. But in their article, they obviously asked NASA because they have a quote from NASA going, yes, this is the selected emergency egress system. I was like, get in there. So that was back in the early days of NSF. We got quoted by USA Today and NASA backed us up. Thank you, NASA.
More
Right,
recent
here we go.
Ares was a silly rocket, but anyway, we continue.
Yeah. More photographs. This is obviously from the OPF. You can see that's the payload bay of the orbiter. And the clean suits, obviously, because obviously you don't want to get any lost items. Fun story. There's still a engineer's wedding ring, wedding band, lost in Atlantis. They never found it. And it's basically Atlantis on display at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center. Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center, that's what I said right first time, is where Atlantis is right now. And the wedding band is still in Atlantis somewhere. That's a true story as well. Little shuttle trivia. Back in the T-38s. This would be crew arrival. Yeah. More emergency training. That's obviously relates to pad. That'll probably the end result of maybe the basket return because you can see the I forget the name, but the specialized crews to recover the astronauts if they come down the slide bar baskets into the bunker, and obviously that's training they always did for missions. A lovely photograph there of them crew just doing some jogging,
Oh
and
yeah.
obviously EVA training in the neutral buoyancy laboratory at JSC,
Which,
which
by the
was
way,
a
for the jogging, I think they pointed out for Polaris Dawn, they would just do regular jogs around the circumference of 39A. So they could just kind of go out around Kennedy Space Center and jog as needed.
this stream's going to go on forever because I've got trivia coming out of my ears. There's actually an outline of a shuttle orbiter at KSC. I'm sure you've been there, Sawyer.
I
Is it
took a
public access? Are you allowed to literally walk around that shuttle outline at KSC?
No, it is inside of KSC. It's inside of a an area that is off
Oh,
limits to most of the public. But if you actually take a look back at my photos, I believe it's on all of my socials too. From the IM-2 launch, I took a streak shot of that launch, and in the foreground is the shuttle outline for that walkway. So if you haven't seen it, if you look at my photo from a couple of weeks ago, it's in the shot.
nice. Nice, because I always see that. I know it wasn't an older, it was a newer edition. I say newer, back in the shuttle days. But it's always something I've always wanted to visit. So, damn, it's restricted. Maybe I could pull some favors. They're back to neutral birds. And then we got more training photographs. And there's the pole. We got to the pole. That is a deployable pole they would put out there, and then they would slide down it and parachute out of it. I don't know how well that would have worked out, but that was something they added as a crew escape option. I might have more photographs of this. I'm not too sure. I'm looking through the folder, but that is the pole. Anyway, there's the pole. Yeah, it doesn't look very appetizing as a way. Well, I suppose if if it's your last gaps option, you're going to take it. And there is more recovery training.
Yeah, so basically, for those wondering about the pole, what you would do is there was kind of a hook that you would attach to it. So you'd put the hook on it, and then you would slide down it and away from it. Of course, the orientation would have to be just right. This would have to be with no engines firing or anything like that to kind of be out of the way. But in a absolute worst case scenario, it would pop the hatch. The pole would jump out. You'd slide. You basically put your hook on it that would guide you, and then you would slide off of it. There was actual training done of this on regular airplanes to kind of simulate it. So they have tried this before, just not on the actual orbiter, just a simulated version using an airplane.
Wow. I am going to try something that's probably going to mess this. Oh no, I will mess it up because I'm in a folder of photographs. But Sawyer, I tell you what I'm going to do, Sawyer. I'm going to take the link to that photograph you were talking about. That's a good idea. And spam chat. There we go. That'll be the best way of doing it because I know for a fact I will mess up my OBS if I do it otherwise. There we go. Spam four. Oh, I don't know why I do it 4 times because it's not like a Starship stream where it goes off chat after 3 seconds. It'll stay on there for a while. There we go. Final photographs from the preparations. That is a great photograph. That shows again scale. That is where they attach the orbiter to the external tank, and that is the feed lines. And it really is incredible to see the humans for scale again, and some TPS in view, and the SRBs on the left hand side. There's a patch. Not the prettiest patch, but I do have a question while I allow Sawyer to talk about it in a second. But
Uh-huh.
the question was Lord of Random, which is a great username. I feel I need to ask this. What is your favorite shuttle patch? Mine is STS-27. I can't wait for the next episode. So, sorry, let's talk about this patch first and then maybe your favorite patch.
Ooh, okay. So yes, this is the patch for STS-26. Obviously, you have all of the crew names around it. You see the sunrise behind it. That is meant to represent a new beginning. And the plume is there also meant to symbolize a successful and a safe launch. And you see, building upon the traditional strengths of NASA with the red vector, the swoosh, which symbolizes aeronautics on the original NASA insignia, and of course, a remembrance of the crew members of STS-51L with the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the left.
Awesome. Favorite patch?
Uh, ooh. I'm looking at my pin collection in front of me with all of them. I still liked STS-134. The fact that it wasn't circular, it kind of had that uh, sort of atomic structure to it for the alpha magnetic spectrometer. Of course, it's Endeavor's final flight, so it also has Endeavor on it. I really like 134.
I was going to go. I love 34, 134. I think it's a beautiful patch. It really is. So that was going to be one. There's some older ones that I'd have to go back through again and just down select because there's some really lovely ones with the orbiter in it. But yeah, STS 134. When I first saw it come out with the MS, and I thought, yeah, that looks just great. It really was. STS 133 was a letdown for me. That was kind of like for Discovery's final mission. That was like not great. I'll tell you what patches I do like. Our Starship patches, which are relevant in store,
Subtle,
but actually are
subtle.
not. A lot of them are sold out. But yeah, there's still some, and it's going to be a while away. But we've done the pre-design for what was going to be Flight 9, and it is the best patch ever. Now, again, we think Flight 9 is going to be a different kind of mission because they've lost 2 Block 2s in a row. Hey, we made it Starship Sunday. But yeah, we've got some great designs coming out for our Starship patches. Right, now to launch photographs. In
By the way,
fact, I probably should go to videos first
and just
because,
one quick thing, by the way, if you don't mind, I saw a question
yes,
in chat that I want to answer. Martin saying, why a pole instead of just jumping out the wing? That's exactly the reason, because they don't want you going out the wrong way, accidentally smacking into parts of the orbiter. The way that the hook was designed that you would go onto it was specifically designed to avoid as much of the vehicle as possible.
There we go. Very good. Right. Yeah. Before I go to launch photographs, I think it probably make more sense to go to the preparation, which was still testing towards return to flight. One important test I had to do was with the SRBs. Now, they did regular static fire tests of the SRBs in Utah. And basically, that was regular occurrence, and they still did it through and still doing it to this day with the gems. And I'm sure they'll probably do another one for the ball boosters and things like that for Artemis if SLS survives. So there's lots of times this happens, but this was a very important one, and one where they did a test where they purposely put faults into the SRB so that it would actually test the O-ring redesign. So this was a really big test. Imagine if this is blowing up, they'd have to stand down and think about it again. But the only video of it is from CNN, but it was NASA TV's views. NASA TV's actual original video is no longer anywhere to be seen. So I'm going to play this from the CNN version. Hopefully the sound will come through. Let us know in chat.
1, 0. CO2 quench and water deluge panels. Roger. Plus 100.
These are live pictures of the final test firing for the redesigned space.
Right, he starts talking and talking and talking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just actually show you the last part of this. Obviously, it went well. He started talking about turning off the motors and stuff. Once you fire an SRB, it's going to keep going until you run out of propellant. So yeah, we don't need to listen to all that. But there is a part here I want to show you, which is something was a regular thing. Here we go. Here's a CO2 quencher. It was like basically the reason for doing that was not to cool it down. It was so they could protect the booster's internals at the point of shutdown, and then they'd tear the booster apart and then investigate it. And they found everything was well. So that was a good test. That all went very well. There is a question from Gabriel. This is why I was pausing there. If they recover the SRBs and scrap it, why bother recovering them? Right. So I will give part of my answer and Sawyer can fill in the gaps. But when they recovered the boosters, yes, they didn't then just wash them out and reuse them or refill them. They would take them apart. They'd take them apart so they could look at the internals and get a good investigation into how that booster performed. But they would save the casings. And then they would put the casings back together again, fill the propellant and reuse them that way. So it was partially reusable. What am I missing there? Sorry, I think I've got most of that, but it was basically investigation of the flight and then reuse the casings.
Pretty much. And then, of course, then it's like, wait, if you have to take the whole thing apart, how do they get them ready so quickly? The nice thing about all of these SRB segments is that they're interchangeable. So if, say, the bottom part of the booster that just flew needs some refurbishment, well, any bottom part from any other solid rocket booster will work just fine. So there are a bunch of Frankenstein solid rocket boosters that flew together from a whole bunch of different missions dating, I mean, there was 20, 30-year gaps between flights on a single booster.
Yep, absolutely. And the other big test for this was the flight readiness firing. which is great because the video of this not only shows what a flight readiness firing looks like, we've done it in previous Shuttle Sundays, but it also has some replays where you can actually see the twang we talk about. Remember, when a shuttle launches, the SSMEs, I like to call them RS-25s, but SSMEs fire up and push the stack forward, and then it comes back to complete vertical, and then it launches. But when you do a flight readiness firing where you don't actually launch it, you can see the twang going backwards and forwards, which is really, really great. So I'm going to show the flight readiness firing here, and we'll talk a little bit about that after we play the video.
Coming up on the T-minus 31 second point mark, and we have a go for auto sequence start, switching control to the onboard computers. T-minus 20 seconds and counting. This T-minus 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. We have a go for main engine start. 7, 6. We have main engine start. The motor's up and running. Plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus 10 seconds, 11, 12. We have a go for a shutdown. And we have safing in progress. If the computer had failed to command the shutdown on time, there were a number of safeguards built into the into the system.
And also engine 3. HDD.
All 3 engines are shut down. It appears everything has gone well at this point, and the team has started safing of the vehicle. The auxiliary power units in the process of being shut down. Water on the
Yeah, I was going to pause it there. You can see the twang already, but there's actually a replay video that shows it a lot better in a second. So I'm going to fast forward to that. But I just wanted to show this. The water at the pad would absolutely spew up into the orbiter because obviously it's been firing. It's not launching anywhere. And that is just part of the safety systems. But I always found this fascinating. A bit like the aborts, Sawyer. There's been a few aborts, including with the flight readiness firing, wasn't it? Because the first attempt, I think, aborted at T-minus 1 second.
Yeah, this one in particular, right before they were going to go ahead and start the full firing, they had to abort it. And this happened on any time they had the RSLS aborts, the ones on the pad with the engines firing, as just a way to prevent any additional fires in case anything was burning. You'd rather have the extra water than have flames.
Here we go. I think this is the one I wanted to show.
Oh, this
Here we
camera
go.
161.
Here we go.
This is the 255-foot level of the fixed service structure.
That's what we call a twang.
Normally on launch, as soon as it goes back up right there, that's when liftoff would occur.
Yeah. It's amazing because the entire stack is only held down, not by umbilicals and not by anything like an arm. It's held down by the bolts on the SRBs that have frangible nuts that explode, and that's what releases the orbiter. It's incredible. I mean, this twang, you'd think, what if a bolt snaps? But obviously they know what they're doing.
Plus, they have extras for each one. They're ridiculously strong. There's multiple for each booster.
There we go. That was cool. I just wanted to show that bit. I keep wanting to mute myself so I don't talk over a video, but that had no sound. Again, more views here. I can put this video out there in whatever. Well, you'll see it, in fact, because this is a public video, so it's fine to show this. But there's just more replays of that flight readiness firing. All you got to do is search. I think this will be on YouTube because this is definitely where it came from. and you can actually replay it in your pleasure because it's quite a long video. Don't have to show it. Let's go to launch photographs. Here we go. 1 second. Beautiful shots here. Look at this.
Oh, goodness.
Again, there's 39A in the background. With the water tower that's still there to this day. That overflows to this day because that's how I know it's full. We still get it. We still get it. People going, it's leaking. It's 1 minute to launch and the water tower's leaking. Is that going to be a scrub? No, that's just to know it's full.
Yeah, this was way before it was painted with SpaceX on it.
Yeah. A great ascent photograph there. I did some really lovely shuttle photographs here.
Oh, I
of
love
launch.
the in-air shots. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to show a video in a second. The video is one of those ones where the audio levels are really basically focused on the engine. So bear with me when I play this. Jay's in the background producing. Thank you, Jay. I never thank the producers. I'm terrible for that. Jay's producing this in the background for us. He may have to get a finger on a button for the launch video because it is so loud. I don't know what they were doing with the microphones on this one, but hey, we all like shuttle noises, don't we? So that's cool. There's crew walk out. Another launch photograph. That's
The same walkout that we saw just the other day for Crew 10.
Yeah, and let's not talk about the crane. Wait till Jack's back. There we go. Another cool photograph. Again, you can't go wrong with it. The photography from Shuttle, even we talk about the 80s, it's just so beautiful. It really is.
Yeah, all on film.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's not digital photography. This is film. They've developed it. And a lot of these photographs, especially the preparation ones, which you've not seen before because they're not public, will have been actual photographs that we've managed to find a way, in several cases, a shoebox full of photographs sent to a special photograph store and said, can you scan these and make them digital and put them on a little USB stick and then download it into one of our drives, and we put them in L2. Incredible. And that's not an L2 flex. That's not trying to make you subscribe. That is just something that's important to me. It's important to me that they're not lost forever, because a shoebox full of photographs on actual film could easily be lost in a move or in an incident or whatever. The fact that we've saved them to digital means they're there forever, as long as the internet and computers work. They're there forever. That to me is like really important. Right, launch video time. Here we go. I told you to show me about preparations. We're rushing through this now. Launch time. Again, watch your speakers, boys and girls. This is going to be loud.
Stop the clock. The orbiter computers have positioned the vent doors T-minus 31 secones. We have a go for auto-sequence start. Discovery's 4 redundant computers have assumed T-minus 23 seconds and counting. The SRB nozzle profile. T-minus 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. The go for main engine start. 7, 6,
solid rocket booster separation. 1 minute 45 seconds. 3 engines at 104%. Velocity 4,800 feet per second. Altitude 20 nautical miles. Downrange distance 19 nautical miles. Standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Solid rocket boosters have separated.
Nice of McAfee to pop up saying I've got no viruses during that launch video. Thanks very much, McAfee. That was very well timed. Yeah, now, several parts of this launch, I mean, obviously it went very well. I think the call out go for throttle up, which is iconic. Just the way that they called it back from the orbiter. I think it was like, Roger, go. It was like, kept it nice and light. Because imagine if the nerves of the people watching during that part. And the second part being, I remember lots of people talking about this mission before, afterwards, where they see the flames, which were kind of like what you saw during Challenger, emitting from the aft of the actual orbiter itself there. That's a very well-known phenomenon that happens during every launch. So that was completely normal, but you can understand people who may be watching the first mission after Challenger thinking, not again. So yeah, that was something I always point out. It's a normal thing.
Yeah, the bottom of the external tank would always be extra charred, being near the exhaust plumes there. As we talk about during our launches, the higher up you get, the more the plume expands. So that's what it's going to kind of look like, the expansion, which, of course, concerning given the first flight after Challenger. Now, the launch was almost perfect. There was actually a slight issue that happened in terms of debris falling off right at one of the flange points for the right SRB. So if it kind of looks like that's a toasty area, it's because that was actually an issue. It was one of the forward field joints. So yeah, a very unfortunately reminiscent of a later mission that had cork foam insulation issues, but that was first seen on this too.
I might have a photograph in the landing folder. We're going to go through the mission folder now because I told you this would be a long one. But I do believe I have a TPS photograph of landing, which might be related to that. I'll have a look. But it's the mission photographs. We're going to skip through these because a lot of them are just on orbit during experiments. Again, this was not a return to flight where they're just testing the orbiter. They're actually doing proper payload deployments and proper experiments on board. As they always do on shuttle missions, it was completely allocated towards what they need to do. There's lots of fun photographs as well to print out there. that's like my to-do list. Again, I like the Hawaii kind of shirts they've got. There's quite a few photographs who are all in these kind of cool shirts.
That was done, by the way, because the Capcom at that point during their flight was from Hawaii. So they all took a group photo and decided to throw in the Hawaiian shirts as a little nod to them.
Sawyer facts. Here we go. Going to skip through these. Quite a lot of them. There's crew together. Crew of 5. That's on the mid deck.
Yeah, I mean, they did some cool ones on this. You know, they were talking about vapors of organic solids, aggregation of red blood cells. They had a solidification furnace to check with metals. And after Tidris, I'll tell you about 2 of my favorites.
Cool. Yeah, Tidris deploy. Here we go. Nice little sequence of photographs there. You can see the actual adapter that had it there to deploy it and also hold it in the actual orbiter payload bay during launch. And there it is on its way. That is a beautiful photograph. I saw in our collection. I thought I'm downloading that one.
Oh,
that is stunning. Very iconic shape. The 2 arms pods and the rudder speed brake. People go tail. Yes, it's a tail, but it technically called a rudder speed brake. RSB. Another deployment shot there. There's mission control. In fact, that is not mission control. That is Goddard. That's one of the payload areas. I think Marshall became quite a big center for that during later shuttle missions. They'd have their own payload area, payload control team, which makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, part of it was payload. Part of it also, I believe, was the communications network at the time. I'm trying to pull up the information here in the official press sheet that they had out at the time. But I believe that was part of the spaceflight tracking and data network. That was Yeah, that was where the Spaceflight Tracking and Data Network and the NASA Communications Network, NASCOM, were located, which is what they used prior to TDRS becoming regular.
These old monitors. I do like the unclassified side at the top there. Thinking, well, we can zoom in on that one. That's completely fine. I wonder if there's a classified one. Let's have a look. No, unclassified. I'm all right. There's Mission Control Center in Houston. That looks
Which,
post. Sorry, go. Sorry, go. Sorry.
yeah, Postal. I think this might be a good time to mention a story that's a tradition with Mission Control now that
Yes,
started on this flight.
indeed. Go for it.
So
Sorry.
on STS, after STS 51L, there was, obviously some people that really wanted to encourage the U.S. space program and show their support. So for STS-26, this mission here, Mark and Terry Shelton, and then later their daughter as well, sent a vase of roses to Mission Control as a sort of "we're behind you" deal. That continued on all the way through until STS-135, and in fact, I believe they also did it on DM2. So they would have a rose for each crew member, and then a single white rose to represent all of the astronauts who had been lost in past accidents. In this case, Challenger, and later on, including Columbia.
I was just looking through this photograph to see if I could see it, but no, I don't have a photograph of that, but it became very iconic. I remember seeing it all the time. In fact, NASA TV would often show the family arriving with the roses, and then for them be installed on one of the top of the monitors of Mission Control Center. So it became a really kind of like a big event. It was literally shown on NASA TV. It was not something they just took a photograph and said, "Yep, you remember that?" No, it was actually a big thing. I do believe this could be the mission evaluation room. Now, a lot of people don't know this story, apart from a lot of Shuttle fans, but there was a massive back room behind the likes of the Mission Control Center called the Mission Evaluation Room. I remember you'll see some photographs on later Shuttle missions where we got some really good photographs of the Mission Evaluation Room. It's massive. It's absolutely hundreds of people, and they're the back room working on these Shuttle missions. Often as well, you would hear, when we get to STS-93, you will see a schematic of the conversations that are taking place from the controllers in the Mission Control Center, such as Booster, and then going to the back room of main engines, the back room of boosters, SRBs, and they were in the mission evaluation room. So you had this massive team involved with the missions, but you'd only get to see mainly on TV the Mission Control Center with the actual flight directors and Capcom and the consoles for each of the main departments, but their back rooms are huge, and that's a great photograph of the olden days, the mission evaluation room. Cool photograph. Mission Control Center t-shirts. Very nice. There's the shirts.
There you go. Aloha.
Indeed. Sleeping Time, which Daz recently did at the Vast video, the Vast tour. Daz got to test out their little sleeping rack. So that's kind of cool little synergy there.
Yeah, they would just have hooks around the mid bay that you could literally attach your sleeping bag to, and that would be it. Or you could go up to the top of the vehicle there and kind of just chill out as well.
There's a flight deck photograph. Again, these are just rare photographs. I thought I'd definitely just show them. There's the TDRS been deployed. This is a quiz I want to give everybody. What is the photograph of? Try and chat right now, and if you're watching this as a recorded video, put in the comment section what you think this could be a photograph of. Sawyer, are you going to spoil it by knowing it?
No, I actually don't.
It's definitely a landmark people will know. I just can't think of what it is without putting it through AI. I don't want to cheat, put it through AI software and say, what is this a photograph of? And it'll tell me what it is. Ari says it's a volcano. Well done, Ari. I'm thinking of the actual place rather than what what we're looking at. I think we can work out from what it is. But yes, I'm leaving it for chat, and I'm leaving it for the comment section of the recorded video as well. A little quiz. You can name this as well if you want. Let's zoom in for you so you can get a better look. I'm getting Mount Fuji as a guest from Space Coast Launches. And then we're back to Mission Control Center. And this is two photographs to end with on this part of the folder is the payload bay doors. actually closing ahead of return. Now, again, this was a key part. You had to get these payload bay doors closed. Otherwise, you're not coming back. And they had contingency EVAs in the event this would not happen properly. So it was a key part ahead of landing, of which we're moving on to next.
Yep, which, by the way, they had to close also as late as possible, since the metallic shine that you see there, those are the radiators that would
Yes.
radiate out the heat. It would get too hot if you kept them closed for too long. So once they were closed, you needed to come home quick. And before we move on to the landing, I mentioned I would point out two of my favorite experiments on this. One of them was a communications experiment where they were going to try and use infrared. As they put here in the press kit, totally not to date it in any way, but it said using the same kind of invisible light that remotely controls our home TV sets and VCRs, they would use infrared to test communications rather than radio waves, which, fun fact, we use now. So that started on Shuttle. Another one, this goes all the way back to one of other NASA's archive sites that I have here, was something called the VCU, the Voice Control Unit, which was used to control cameras that monitor the mechanical arm mounted in the cargo bay of Discovery. It was shown eventually to have an over 96% success rate in functionality. It wasn't used for anything critical, but turns out they had done some voice samples that they tested on the ground to kind of feed it. They went to use those voice samples and realized, crud, they're kind of terrible. It turns out voice changes happen once you're in orbit, so the voice prints that they did while they were on the ground were useless in space. But this was sort of the first test of voice controlled, so this was the equivalent of the Siri of 1988.
Nice. Sawyer facts. Sawyer facts. I do like the fact that we now can thank L remote controls for the Space Shuttle program, because don't turn that dial is a saying, because people used to literally have to get up and turn a dial on their TV to change channels and to lower the volume and change the volume settings. So yes, we're all spoilt now by our little devices. In fact, a lot of them even moved on to voice control now. I've not gone that route myself. I'm not going to start shouting at my TV what to do. I still use remote control. I haven't got to that stage yet. Landing photographs. These will be out of sequence, but we've got a lot of them, so that's cool. Here we go. Bear with me. There we go. At Edwards, I do believe.
Yep, this was out in California.
That's TPS damage I want to show a photograph of. That's a big chunk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was pointing out before.
Yeah.
That turned out coming off of that part near of the foam, basically right near one of the attachment points for the SRBs. Damaged the tiles there. Unfortunately, this would be seen again on multiple missions and would become fatal eventually with STS-107. But this was just one example. There's another dramatic example of tile damage coming up on the next Shuttle Sunday, too.
Yeah. I have an actual dedicated thread full of photographs of that one. Yeah, that was scary and amazing, and it was a real kind of like close call. That it didn't end in a Columbia-style disaster. And that's the next one to look forward to, I say carefully. More landing photographs. Again, lots of photographs here from landing, which are beautiful. I do like to randomly post on X some landing photographs now and again on anniversaries and what have you, so look out for those. I do love that Jared always likes our shuttle photographs. The potential and very likely next NASA administrator. Again, he's a flyer, he's a pilot, so he probably will be quite aligned to the space plane orbiter. But yeah, it's just great that he likes those photographs. Marks, you can't give me 11. That's cheating. The rest gave it a 10 out of 10 landing. There we go. That's good. Well done, Discovery. I'm going to look around this photograph for the roses just in case. Don't see it. They make a big deal out of it in these photographs. Never mind. But that is the...
Well, now they do. Yeah, again, this was the first time it was ever done, so it's more of just a sweet gesture as opposed to what became a tradition.
Right. But that is from the landing. You can see that because the actual view in the screen is of landing.
Yep, and this was the runway 17, which is a dirt runway, and in fact is the longest runway in the world at 39,000 feet in length. That's 11,900 meters long.
Wow, even I'd managed to land something on that. Plenty of time. One fun story, well, I'll skip through these photographs I didn't mention, is that on the corrupted, unfortunately, resource tape, it also highlights the wake up songs, including Flight Day 1's wake up song, which was Robin Williams, the late great Robin Williams, who did a fun parody song. They're all parody songs, weren't they? But the Good Morning Discovery, obviously, it must have been around the time that Robin Williams had done Good Morning Vietnam.
Yep.
He did a real fun song, including a line which made fun of Land at White Sands, no way, which because the STS-3 landed at White Sands had so much gypsum being thrown up by the landing that they were still finding it in Colombia for years and years and years afterwards. So yeah, there was a fun I think it was 3 songs, parody songs. Sorry, you know more about this than I do.
Yep, there was Good Morning Discovery, which, as you mentioned, was a play on Good Morning Vietnam. There was a parody of the Beach Boys song I Get Around, and then a parody of the song Fun, Fun, Fun. Let's just say her daddy wasn't taking the T-Bird away in this case.
Brilliant. A little trivia that I'm sure there's quite a lot of people who have got into our channel by following SpaceX and Starship, and I do love that. The idea that there's some people who would don't know what a shuttle is, but they would not know the missions and going through this. If any of you are in chat or watching these videos, do post in comments saying I didn't get into spaceflight until SpaceX, until Starship, or maybe Falcon 9, things like that. And I'm now learning about shuttle. That would please me so much. It please Sawyer as well, because this is an important part of the history and it is related. Everything safety culture wise, including the whole Butch and Sonny thing that you've seen in the media today and over the previous days, have taken lessons from what we've learned during the space shuttle program. There's no doubt about it. There's a synergy and crossover, not least that there's shuttle people who are now working at SpaceX and bringing that knowledge with it. So that's an important little crossover that I always bring up, and people go, Chris, are you being fluffy? And I go, no, I'm not fluffy. I'm from Yorkshire. I can't be fluffy. I don't know how to be fluffy.
And also shuttle fans over at SpaceX, such as if you were watching launch or docking, Chris Gebhardt.
Yes, that was great. Chris G doing SpaceX live streams. I was hoping that would happen because SpaceX isn't... Chris G's job at SpaceX is internal communications, where he's basically like a PR officer for the workforce. But they're now letting him out and do external communications as well. So that's really, really cool that he's doing some Starship stuff. He's done a Dragon stuff now. So maybe we'll see more and more of him on TV, which is great. Couldn't be happier for him.
Same.
This is the Turbac with the purge trucks. Now, the purge trucks at KSC I thought they were better designed. Is that the right way of saying it? We've gone past an hour. This is where Chris's brain turns into mush. But the purge trucks is something important. Purge and cooling. They had to hook them up to after the orbiter to keep her cool after post landing. So that was an iconic thing you saw at KSC. But these are the Vandenberg version. This is Vandenberg. The Californian version, the Edward versions of it. More landing focus. There we go. It's a better picture of it. See, hooked up to the aft there. Big long pipes. There were strange truck devices. There's a tow truck.
Yeah, which Crew Dragon does a sort of purge line. That's why sometimes you'll see them go out with the sniffer stick, as it's called. We'll see that again for the Crew 9 return to check for any of those hypergulls venting out. You kind of just had the purge lines that would hook up right to shuttle with these trucks, and that would act in a similar way.
You can see the era. We should have EJ on for this one. He'd name every single vehicle. He'd name every single vehicle in view here. I guarantee you. I'm not even joking. But you can see the era just by the cars. It's amazing. This view of the shuttle was something that stayed with us for 3 decades. It was an iconic shape, an iconic looking vehicle. But the vehicles changed with the times. I always find it incredible. Oh, look at the old 80s TV cop shows. American cop cars. To an English person, they're very iconic. They're just like, oh, American TV cop shows.
Car 54, where are you? Chips.
This is a great photograph.
Oh.
Look at that.
With the heat haze, too. It just adds to it.
Yeah. And the final photograph in our collection, we went through 180 photographs. We got to the final one. There's Discovery, completed her mission, STS-26, return to flight in the bag, kicking off a run of a lot of missions that we'll be covering, the next one being STS-27. with a very good orbiter, I do believe. Sawyer, a very, very good orbiter. Yes, very good.
I mean, it's not the best orbiter, but it's still a very good orbiter. Yeah.
Ooh, fighting talk. But yeah, thanks
Well,
for
the best orbiter doesn't come into service until the 90s. So
yeah. How can it be the best orbiter then? That's what I'm saying. Made of spare parts.
anyway,
Made of spare parts.
yes, your Atlantis, for those wondering, is the next orbiter up. Which Atlantis originally was considered as part of the return to flight mission. Instead, they ended up using it for testing of some of the changes out at Pad B. So they had Atlantis out there doing testing, but chose to go with Discovery for it since, well, it's kind of already stripped of a lot of parts, so we can put in all the brand new parts and kind of make this a quote unquote new vehicle, see what works, and then any of those changes we can also implement to other orbiters such as Atlantis.
There we go. Oh, big thanks to Steve Taylor, who's joined our membership program as a PadRat member. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the family, Stephen. Thank you very much. I'm going to make sure, as we like to do with the interactive version, the live version of this, I've still got a couple of minutes. We can just take a few points here. Some are not questions, but points. So I'm going to read them out anyway. Martin asks, those test firings, the flight readiness firings, are they crewed? No. Sorry, they wouldn't have a crew on board with it for that.
No, they would not. Absolutely not. That's
Yep.
automated part. Yes, there are parts during the flight that have to be flown by crew, but that's the landing. So as long as you're not having to land, you're fine.
There we go. Gwen notes that there was even a shuttle patch when Enterprise flew to the UK on the back of a plane, the shuttle carrier aircraft. The only foreign shuttle landing. Yeah, because they did take Enterprise on a world tour. And there's a photograph out there somewhere, you're about to search it public, where you see Concorde taking off
Yep.
and the shuttle on the runway. It's amazing.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Oh, there we go. The Rocket Girl, I have gotten into spaceflight and rockets with Eutelsat 36D. When I saw it from KSC on March 30th, 2024, last year, my father loves to tell me shuttle stories since I now love rockets. That's amazing. That's the kind of comment I was looking for. Great. Thank you, the Rocket Girl, for saying that, because that is awesome.
And thank you to your father as well for
Yes.
continuing the tradition of sharing all the awesome stories.
Excellent parenting. Ari, why shuttle missions named so weird, like STS-25 after STS-51L? Well, it's STS-26, but I get the idea. Why would you think 51 is after 25? So basically, the shuttle missions and their ordering, Sawyer. Maybe a quick answer to that.
Sure. So basically, once a mission gets assigned, it gets a number. If it shifts in the schedule, so let's say you have 27 up next, and then, oh wait, the payload's not ready, we need to swap it around, 28 would go first, but it keeps the same numbers. They're not going to change all the numbering around. As for this one in particular, going from 51L to 26, the original nomenclature with the fancy weirdos with the letters and stuff was because of location. So it was going to be 5. You had 5 was, let's say, the financial year that it was planned. Then the 1 was going to be whether it was on the East Coast would be a 1. If it was a West Coast launch, it would be a 2. And then the letter was the order in the fiscal year. Given the fact that they had canceled the shuttle program out of the West Coast, there was no need to differentiate between East or West. So they decided, you know what, let's get rid of that terrible numbering system and just go with mission number. In the case of this, it turns out there were other missions that were already named 26. So this is technically 26R. But that's why they changed it. There was no need for the random weird numbering for East and West Coast if there was going to be no West Coast.
There we go. One final one from Connor O'Kay with a guess about the photograph that we showed with the volcano. I believe it's Mount Tambora in Indonesia. So let's see, Connor, if you're right. We'll find out in the comment section when this video gets uploaded as a public video, either later today or tomorrow. It depends where we get a slot, because you know what YouTube's like. You've got to find a slot that doesn't interfere with another video we're publishing at the same time. So we'll have this video on public so you can replay it. There's a 12-hour window anyway you can replay Space Coast Live. We're now going to let Space Coast Live go back to the port fans, looking at Fleet Cam and looking at KSC views via our Space Coast Live cameras. Until then, let me thank Sawyer. Thank you, Sawyer, for joining us.
Oh, it's so good to be talking about Shuttle again. I'm excited to keep going now with more Shuttle Sundays, and we have a long stretch of spectacular missions to come.
Indeed, as Chris G would say. I'm now taking his saying, but it'll still be Chris G's forever. And thank you also to Jay Keegan in the background. Jay does amazing work throughout NSS streams and videos and helped us on this Shuttle Sunday be a nice smooth show because I'm the one with the OBS. I guarantee you I have technical challenges quite often, but Jay has helped me through this and we've had a good show and I've really enjoyed this. So until the next Shuttle Sunday, thanks for joining us and goodbye.